School is in. But are you really ready to learn? Open your eyes to a new day in education with The Awakening Educator, a program specifically designed to explore a new, mindful way of educating our youth. Learn about social-emotional learning, new modalities of teaching, and the most relevant topics in education with your hosts, Susan Andrian and Megan Sweet. Susan and Megan will take you inside the issues by looking at them from different points of view, from policies and research to teaching models that are actually used in schools. There's never a dull moment in this classroom. Have any questions you'd like to ask? Maybe you have knowledge you'd like to share. And share your thoughts live on air. Grab a pen and paper and get ready to open your textbooks and minds to a new way of learning on The Awakening Educator.
Hi, my name is Susan.
And my name is Megan.
And we're the hosts of The Awakening Educator, a show about education, its policies, and the issues most relevant in our schools.
We take you inside contemporary issues to understand them from different points of view and highlight the achievements and best practices of the people who serve our students.
I'm a licensed marriage and family therapist with over 25 years of experience working with children and families to help them improve their health and academic outcomes.
And I'm a systems thinker with a doctoral degree in educational leadership and over 25 years of experience as a teacher, school leader, and district administrator.
Together, we plan to take the educational system by storm by using our personal experiences and knowledge to inspire those interested in a brighter future for education.
You can listen to our show on Facebook at The Awakening Educator or The Awakening Educator on iTunes, Spreaker, iHeartRadio, or wherever you listen to your podcasts.
We hope to deepen your understanding of education on our show, where we see issues as more than just the moment, but as a movement.
Hey, hi everyone. Welcome to The Awakening Educator. I am Megan Sweet, and I'm here with Susan Andrian.
Hi, everybody.
And, we're really excited because we have 4 teachers with us today.
And Megan, do you want to stop sharing your screen so we can see everybody and not the screen? There we go.
I thought it was stopping sharing, but that's better. I thought I had done that, but thank you for letting me know that I hadn't. So we're really excited to have all of you here today to speak with us about distance learning in this time, which is, it's quite a moment for all of us. So we're excited to have you all here. Susan and I are going to introduce each of our guests, and then we're going to jump right in with the conversation. So I think I'm first. Is that right, Susan?
I think so. That's right.
And correct us if we say your names inaccurately. I apologize in advance if that happens, because I'm looking at a name that I might say wrong. So Christopher, if I do it wrong, let me know. So the first person I'd like to introduce is Christopher Youngren. Is that right?
Youngren, yeah.
Youngren.
And I've learned he goes by Topher. So, is that right?
Oh, goes by Topher. Yeah. Okay, so Topher, who's an award-winning stage actor, playwright, director, and public speaker, YouTuber, and magician. He has a BS in speech communication from Northern Arizona University, where he was a national champion speech team competitor. And he has an MFA from California State University, Fullerton, where he won the American College Theater Festival in acting, culminating with a performance at the Kennedy Center in Washington, D.C. Very impressive. He's currently a 6th, 7th grade ELA teacher at the Academy of Tucson in Arizona, where he has adapted his theater training to enhance student engagement via distance learning with a series of improv games designed for Zoom. He also has a YouTube channel where he shares these techniques with educators for use in their own classrooms. Currently, he's working on writing an improv book for the virtual classroom.
All right, and I get the honor of introducing Emily Silas. And I always call her Bibbin, so I want to get it right. Since receiving her master's in education from the University of Massachusetts, Boston in 2000, Emily Silas has been teaching high school history in Boston public schools. She was a debate coach in the Boston Debate League for many years and is also a member of Unafraid Educators, an organization group with the Boston Teachers Union that advocates for the needs of undocumented students and their families. She's currently a history teacher at English High School, In her work as a classroom teacher, she collaborates with organizations such as Facing Our History and Ourselves and WGBH to design, implement curriculum that is rigorous, responsive, and relevant. She also works to embed opportunities for students to engage in ethical reasoning as well as advocacy and organizing as they study history. She is also a mother of 2 teenage boys.
Welcome, Emily. I have the pleasure of introducing Stephanie Simpson, who is an artist, coach, speaker, and educator living in New York City. She's taught at universities, secondary schools, and community programs domestically and internationally. She's the founder and director of the dance program, as well as director of coaching at Riverdale Country School. An RYT 200-hour certified yoga instructor, Stephanie holds a BA in Interdisciplinary Studies from Emerson College, an MFA in Dance Performance and Choreography from Smith College, an MA in Clinical Psychology with an emphasis in spirituality, mind, body, and focus in organizational change from Columbia University Teachers College, and is currently finishing her CPC from IPEC. Oh, I did IPEC, Stephanie. And Core Energy Leadership Coaching. With her background in psychology, arts education, somatics, mindfulness, and coaching, she works with students, professionals, and organizations, guiding them to achieve their greatest potential by nurturing the connection between mind, body, and spirit through her company, Stephanie Simpson Coaching.
And I am really excited to introduce Brandon Copeland. Brandon, in his 13 years as a secondary math teacher and coach, is currently teaching in Tacoma, Washington. He graduated from UC Berkeley with a degree in interdisciplinary studies with an emphasis in economic development. Brandon began his teaching career in Oakland Unified School District, where he worked at Edna Brewer Middle School and Roosevelt Middle School. Brandon is an effective and I'm sorry, I can't read because my eyes are too small. I got to make this bigger.
Your eyes aren't too small.
My eyes are not too small. Sorry. An impactful educator in the classroom who encourages personal and academic growth through high expectations and prioritizing a sense of community among and with his students. In addition to supporting students to make positive gains in mathematical proficiency, Brandon continues to his school community through coaching, mentoring, and school leadership. Brandon works to amplify unrepresented students and family voice through restorative practices and equity work. Brandon lives with his wife, Mary, and their 2 children, Naima, 4, and Nasir, 1. Brandon enjoys the outdoors, cooking, what he grows in his garden, Dodgers baseball, and generally spending time with his family.
What an amazing group we have. We're so grateful to talk with all of you. Susan and I have talked a lot over the last many months about what it must be like to be instructing kids during this time. And I have an 11-year-old myself. And he has that screen on blank every day. And I just imagine what it must be like for the teachers to have, to teach to a room full of blank screens and try to get through, and the kids are struggling. So it's such a dynamic, it's always hard to teach. And I taught for 10 years middle school. So my middle school people always make me, I feel cozy with middle school people. But it's tough on a good day, let alone with all these different challenges, both at home and what's going on in the world. So it's just, our hats are off to you. We're excited to hear what you all have to say. Susan, you're running this show. So
all right,
keep your eyes on.
So we'd like to start out, we're going to be asking 2 panelists at a time, and then if you have something you really want to add, you can, but sort of thinking about answering about 1 or 2 minutes or 3 minutes tops around these questions. And so we want to start with Emily and Christopher. It's been 8 months since the pandemic started and we went into shelter in place. I think we were all thrown and pivoted. It was really quick. It was crisis response and distance learning. So what was that like for you as a veteran teacher? And I think, Chris, you're a new teacher, so this is a new experience for you. And Emily, you're a veteran teacher. What was that like to make that quick pivot? And how has your distance learning instruction evolved since March, since that first happened? And so we'll start with Emily and then go to Christopher.
Okay, great. I think for me, it's funny. I'm usually like a very chill person. Like I don't panic. But when I first started hearing the reports about the coronavirus, I was like that person who was like, the sky is falling. And everyone in my school was like, what are you talking about? And I was like, look at Italy. We're going to be Italy. And they were really looking at me like, okay, Emily's really, gone off the deep end. But I'm kind of grateful that I had that response because it allowed me to talk to my students a little bit before, because I had a feeling we were going to close. So like a couple of weeks before, I said like, hey, what's your computer situation like at home? And, so like I started making some of those moves early on. And particularly for my highest needs students, I did kind of pull them aside and say, look, there's a chance that, we won't be in school for a little while. I don't want to alarm you or your family, but this just, And so that was very helpful, although, I'm sure I could have been reprimanded for doing that. But, these are the risks we take as veteran teachers, right? And I felt like I was able to, because I had really strong relationships already with my students, that transition wasn't terrible. It was hard on everyone not knowing, of course, but I felt like I was able to convert my curriculum. I felt like I was able to try some new things that I was kind of interested in trying and never had the time to do before. And we were also studying the civil rights movement, so I had this like very highly engaging topic that we could continue to do a lot of work around, watch a lot of primary source footage. It was just like, I felt actually quite fortunate that things played out the way they did, but immediately became clear that my students' needs were really great and that their families' needs were really great. And so I was also fortunate to have the opportunity to actually do things for my school district in terms of distributing Chromebooks, food, other things like that. And I was really grateful to have that opportunity because it allowed me to connect with my students, from a distance. But to touch base with them and reach out.
Thank you.
Well, first of all, thank you so much for having me. I really appreciate being here today, especially as a newbie teacher who doesn't know what the heck I'm doing. But actually, I taught college for 7 years, and I've always had one foot in the door. I went through 3 years of the subbing trenches, and I feel like if you can sub, you can pretty much teach anywhere, because I feel like subbing is the best training you can get. You're starting off day one every day with a brand new class. You got to learn behavior management right away, or they will destroy you. So magic tricks go a long way. You show a kid a card trick, and all of a sudden they're in your back pocket. But I've also been teaching online a little bit prior to this. I did give magic classes for about a year or so before I started. So I guess the transition for me to this online distance education, because we're 100% online and we will be through at least January, it wasn't that difficult. What I see and what I hear, what I read, and what I hear from especially veteran educators, the most difficulty I feel that people are having is people who are resistant to the situation, people who are viewing the situation through a lens of 2019 rather than waking up and embracing the suck that is 2020, because this is what we're dealing with right here. And rather than saying, I can't deal with all this technology, I've looked at what's available because, granted, as we move on through the semester, I'm looking more and more at a face of zombies looking back at me and reaching them. Even though I crank it up to an 11 every single day, it's getting harder and harder, I feel, to reach them. And there's so many variables beyond our control. Like, are they watching YouTube? Are they playing Minecraft? We don't know. We don't have any way of controlling it. So the best I can do is put on a show, speak to them at the level they're at, which means in a YouTube type language, make it as entertaining and as engaging as possible, rather than just yammer on and lecture for an hour. I really try and tailor all of my activities to be interactive, and that keeps them as engaged, I think, as they're going to be. But I mean, the struggle is real, and I sleep hard at night, and I'm going to bed earlier than I ever have before. But I think it's an experience. And I think it's if we look at if we look at it at the challenges we're facing and the things that we are actually gaining by going through all of this, I think we're going to reach the other side much stronger for it. And it may be my first year teaching, but I don't have anything to compare it to. So this is all I know, and I'm just embracing it and taking it full on. And I'm actually having a lot of fun. I'm frustrated as all get out about so many things because I'm a parent too, and so I'm dealing with it on both ends. But I'm really trying my best to enjoy the ride and look on the positive side of things. So.
Yeah, it's funny as you say that, Chris, like Topher, because my kids I have on a screen management tools, right? And so when I get that little notice in the middle of Gus's class that you've exceeded your YouTube, you've exceeded your YouTube time, and I can go to him like, dude, what? You were just in class and I got a notification, So trying to manage those things. I actually would like to hear it from, I don't know, I think that this question in particular is relevant to everyone. So I would like to hear from Brandon and Stephanie what your experience has been over the 8 months and like how you did that pivot and how it's changed to now. So maybe start with Brandon and then Stephanie.
So my pivot was abrupt. The timing was unreal. So I remember it was March 16th, and I was using a rare personal day because I budgeted some time. I got the okay from wife, and I was going to spring training to watch some Dodger baseball. Left town Thursday afternoon. Friday morning, preseason is canceled. I get an email from the school. Students will not be reporting to class Monday morning due to COVID. I return Sunday night, and it's like, okay, we got to figure this out. The pivot was abrupt. It was sudden. I was not prepared for it. I will say I've leveraged technology quite a bit over the last few years in teaching. I love to use different platforms as an engagement tool. So the familiarity with online resources is there. The reliance, not so much. I rely very heavily on personal relationships that I'm able to build with students. I am a strong advocate for looping with students because I really believe that relationship is critical. I devote instructional time to things like community building, restorative circles, and just giving students an opportunity to interact, because what I found is a student is going to be willing to take risks if they trust you. Mm-hmm. And they only trust you if they're able to see you as a person. So for me, the biggest challenge now with the new group of students, how do I take a subject like math that requires struggle, that requires grit, resilience, and repeated failure, right? And for a lot of these students, they failed in this subject for years and years and years. So now there's someone talking at them through a screen that there is no personal connection with. So for me, that was and is the biggest struggle. Mm-hmm. Coming into this year, I knew that would be a challenge. So I really devoted the beginning of this year to doing what I could to make sure students are interacting. But even that posed a challenge. It sounds like quite a few of you are actually seeing your students through Zoom. We use Canvas, Big Blue Button is the platform we're using. But of course, with privacy, it's really difficult to get students to turn on cameras and make that a requirement. We didn't take that stance. We didn't take that position. So as a result, I'm not seeing students. I'm interacting with who I believe is on the other side of the screen. It's, students at will are able to turn on their camera and interact. And class to class, I've had anywhere from 3 to 5 students go that route. And I did get some feedback. I know that there is that personal connection being forged now. And in some respects, it's because we are all longing for personal connection. Mm-hmm. Adults, students, it's all the same. And especially students at the middle school level. They really need that personal connection. And I came in thinking just the social, emotional lens. Let's not even talk about content. Let's make sure we're good before we get to the content. So that was and is continued to be, I think, the biggest struggle that I see with the distance learning, the accessibility, and let's not even talk about just the equity issues that are posed here. But it's a conundrum. We're all working through it. And I feel like we're walking to the best of our ability. So I guess the long way to answer your question is, I never figured it out, but I felt like every day I was working to improve and get better and reach out to one more to pull one more with me.
Do you want me to answer that now?
Yeah.
Great. Okay. So I agree with so much of what everyone has said. And Brandon, I really appreciate you talking about the social emotional learning aspect of everything. So in my role at the school that I'm at, I'm the director of coaching and also the dance program director. And we actually kind of knew this was coming. I think we weren't blindsided as much, partially because we take our spring break in March. And our head of school is connected with a lot of other schools across the world, around the world. So when things were not so great in other places, we were actually told that this was going to be a possibility. And so we took the 2 days before spring break to try out remote learning. And we made sure everybody had what they needed. We were using certain platforms at that point that did not prove to be very good, which was one of the reasons they were doing it, so that over spring break, they could then make the necessary changes. Yet we were then just told, like, we don't know, it could just be 2 weeks, it could be a month or anything like that. And then it just kept going and going and going. I will say then the summer we were required as teachers to do a certain amount of professional development that was all around distance learning and how can we shift our curriculums to be pedagogically sound in a distant learning way. And I also teach at one of the city universities here in New York City, and that was also a requirement through them. So I will say that as a teacher, I have felt really supported by the institutions that I am working at, because they, as much as I wanted a break so badly, they required us to do this professional development. As a dance teacher, this has been an interesting pivot, and I like the word pivot because that's a big dance move, right? So having to bring our entire dance concert to a virtual dance concert, I mean, we just had to think really creatively. It's a very different type of engagement, dancing through Zoom boxes than there is, dancing together. We are currently in a hybrid state model right now at our school. So I'm on campus anywhere between 2 to 3 times a week. And there are some times where I'm teaching in person while also having people Zooming in. So that has been, in some ways, I wish it was one way or the other, because that actually I find to be the most challenging, is when you have, I think as teachers, we're really resilient and creative and can do things quickly. And yet there is a very big difference between a pedagogically sound in-person lesson versus a pedagogically sound remote lesson. And when you're trying to do both at the same time, I think that brings a whole different level of stress for both the teacher and the students. In my job as director of coaching, I'm there to support the faculty and the adults on campus. And I think what has always been an issue in education has now come to a forefront that we cannot look the other way, is how are we supporting our teachers? Yes, we're the ones that are holding the space for the students, but who's holding the space for us? And that seems to always be the thing that gets left to the side. And I think this is really bringing the dirt to the surface of, like, how are we supporting our teachers? What are the resources we're giving them so that they can show up in the classroom and be able to hold space for the students, as well as bringing up the idea that content is important, yet emotional and social well-being is more important. And so how, as teachers, can we hold the space for our students and be okay with the fact that maybe we're not getting through the dance lesson or the math lesson or the science lesson because we really need to talk to them and about what they're feeling and allowing them to express themselves in that way. So I think there's a lot of opportunity in the challenge. And I will say that I think every day can go up and down. Like whenever I'm having check-ins with students or teachers, it's, you know, like, let's take it day by day, sometimes hour by hour, and sometimes every 10 minutes. And that's okay. And that as teachers, the more that we can model that for our students, we give them permission to do that as well.
I appreciate so much what everybody said. You know, I was taking down a few themes that I heard from each one of you, and it's one of the ones that I've been wondering a lot about, which is actually as teachers, we rely a lot on nonverbal cues and on those connections that we make with our kids, right? We're kind of acclimated to holding a room, looking at kids, seeing how they're doing. And I can't imagine how difficult it is to try and you know, in those little small moments, you know, like when I was building connections with my kids, it was, you know, I would say hello to them every morning when they walked in the room, and I made a point of getting to know them by something that I saw them doing or something about them, right? Like, you know, it could be something that they were wearing or something that they were drawing on their notebook. Like there were ways that I could build in connection with each kid that now you can't do. And you don't know what else is competing for their time and energy right now. So I think for some kids, you're right. It's my son as well. I'll walk into the room and he's got multiple screens going. I'm like, dude, you know, like, what are you up to? So, you know, so that's happening. Sorry, my dogs like to bark right when I start talking.
You know, it's also
working at home.
If I may, real quick, what I'm finding really difficult as far as connecting goes is I want to look at your faces, but I know that if I'm looking at my faces, then I'm looking down here. And so getting used to like looking at that green light. Yeah. I mean, it's so hard to communicate with a green dot on a computer when what I really want to be doing is looking into your faces, you know, but if I'm looking into your faces, then I think the connection is broken. So it's super weird, but you do our best.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's a really great point. And I think we're probably going to get to equity, which is my big question. And my dogs are fighting a crow outside, which is what you're hearing. I apologize. But I'll let Susan get to the next question. But yeah, that connection and equity issues and how we actually build that connection. And Stephanie, I really appreciate you naming adult needs as well, because I think that's really important during this time.
Yeah, and I think I'm going to abandon the questions that I wrote before and just respond to the stuff that I heard here. It's just we get to do that because that's what you do as teachers and facilitators. So I do really want to think about this, engage, like what are some of the strategies that you have tried and employ to get to pull kids in, and what toll, so to kind of tie those two things together, what is the toll on you as educators, the toll of trying to constantly work on that social, emotional, and relationship connection and engagement connection, and how is it impacting you, and what are some of the things that you've maybe had some success with through engagement? And I think we can keep going through hearing all the, because you're all coming from such different places, both in the country, right, where you have representation from Boston, New York, Arizona, and Washington, and Megan and I are here in Oakland. But thinking about that, kids all over the country are experiencing the same thing. Teachers all over the country are experiencing the same thing. And you're all in different disciplines. And so curious, what have been some of the strategies that you use? And also, what is this toll on you as an educator? And maybe we'll just keep that same order we had before. So I think it was Emily, Chris, Brandon, Stephanie.
Sorry, I realized I didn't say thank you for inviting me. I'm very glad to be here as well. I think, and also I kind of cut myself off because I thought maybe I was rambling, but I didn't really talk about this fall. So this fall I'm teaching, I have 3 sections of English language learners and 1 AP section. So it's like, just wow. And I think like one thing I'm super happy about is my district has the Talking Points app, which allows me to text parents and they receive text in their native language. And I have been maintaining some pretty intense text relationships with parents. And it's just, I do think it's such a great development for me as an educator in this moment to have that as a tool. And then also you can express compassion in a different way, because we're all in this situation. It's a different experience for different people. Clearly I am employed right now, and a lot of the families that we work with are struggling with unemployment. But we have this somewhat shared experience. And so that's a tool that I find has really helped me, not just the talking points, but this level of communication with parents that I've never had before, especially at the high school level. But I do feel like my school's done a really good job at articulating priorities and actually making, in some ways, greater demands of teachers than even the situation, like the immediate situation calls for. For example, we completely blew up our grading policy, right? Mm-hmm. Because we said, you know what, we should have an anti-racist grading policy. It's a pandemic. Like, this thing has to go out the window. We always hated it anyway. And so on the one hand, you could say, like, that's so taxing on a teacher to have to manage this whole new system and to be kind of like doing something that in normal times we would take, an entire school year to do. I'm finding it is sort of energizing and liberating to be able to say, like, we are going to do the things that we always said we were going to do, and we're going to make it happen now. And yes, it's overwhelming and messy, but we're overwhelmed and messy anyway. And so, I don't want to sound like this is all positive. I would say, like, my number one issue is just spending so much time in front of the screen. And my kids, yes, they all have their videos off. I've seen 3 students' faces since school started. I have no idea what they look like. I've never met them before. And they're lovely, and I'm really enjoying getting to know them. But it's tough, that connection. And I was worried because I think, like Brandon was saying, relationships is the core of everything I do in the classroom. That's the fundamental basis of everything we do. And in terms of, like, how you connect with students, very early on in my AP government class, a kid came out and said to me, "Do you support Black Lives Matter?" And in normal times, I would have given some kind of, like, nuanced response. Of course, I would have said yes, but it would have been like, this kind of, like, couched and other stuff. And I was like, this is ridiculous. Yes, like, I have to say yes. I have to make sure it's clear, because they could be on YouTube. They could be helping their little sister, and I can't, like, complicate anything more than it needs to be complicated. And that was, like, a really important awakening for me. Like, sometimes, like, just say what needs to be said. And so I'm trying to use that as, like, a guiding principle for myself, to not talk too much. And hopefully I haven't right now.
For me, the engagement started about a week before students showed up. I made a video with a sort of kooky Hogwarts professor named Professor Crookleshanks, and I sent it to them as a way to demonstrate how magic could actually happen through the computer screen. Even though we were distanced, even though we were separate and apart, we could create magic together. Not me, but Professor Crookleshanks. They still insist that it's me, but I always tell them I'm much more attractive. He's smarter, but I'm more attractive. And so every week I would release another Crookleshanks video, which supported whatever standard-based lesson happened to be covered that week. But then as we moved on, and actually starting on day 1, I started building community over curriculum every single day. And what that means and how that sort of manifests is I take 10 minutes, I take 12 minutes on taking roll, and I take roll by using a question of the day. I start off even prior to that saying fist to 5. Show me how you doing. Fist being terrible, 5 being best day ever. And I can get an immediate read from 20 people about how they're doing. Now, middle school, sky's the limit on whether or not they're being melodramatic or not. Because if they give me a 3 or lower, I want to check in and stop for a second.
I'm imagining some ones with the middle finger, but that's
no. Honestly, I've got great kids, and Their reputation precedes them in middle school, but I've really lucked out because I've subbed at some tough schools, and these kids are great. But it gives me a chance to stop and say, all right, Sheila, are you being dramatic, or do you really have something that's bothering you that you're giving me a 2 today? So that gives me an immediate read. And then we go into a question of the day. And sometimes it's, what are you going to be for Halloween if you're celebrating this year? Sometimes it's a little deeper. What superpower would you have if you had a superpower? And that can actually give us some insight into where they're coming from emotionally sometimes. And then sometimes we just do silly would you rather questions. And if I miss a question of the day, I hear about it because they're used to it now. 3 months into it, they're used to beginning the day. And here's the thing. If I spend 10 or 15 minutes building relationships in lieu of getting to the lesson sooner, then fine, so be it. I mean, this year, all bets are off. And I would rather really connect with them and talk to them and learn about them than hit them over the head with curriculum when they're just going to tune out, I would rather have them interested in what I have to say and what we have to learn together rather than saying, you must learn this. I mean, they must learn this, but I think that it's a different year. We're going through a year that we've never seen before as educators, and hopefully never will again. But I think to really gain the buy-in that we need, we have to make them feel like they're part of a community and not just a series of distant individuals. So, I mean, those are a couple of things I do. I also use improv games, not breakout rooms, but escape rooms. I try and use as much game-based learning as possible so they're not just sitting there listening to me yammer on, which I'm doing that right now. So I'll stop talking and pass the torch.
So speaking to engagement strategies, again, just trying to rely on relationships. I did spend my first 3 weeks getting to know students and allowing them to get to know me. I made a quiz about myself and asked students to do the same and share with the group, figuring out what is your accessibility, right? It's amazing how much trust I was able to build just by reaching out and saying, oh, you're having a hard time finding a module. Let me walk you through it. Let me make a video and send you that video. So really working to take down barriers to even accessing the class and the content really seemed to help. As far as instructional strategies for engagement, of course, routine is very helpful for middle school age students. They like to know what they're going to see in a given day, what to expect, no surprises. So having a regular routine for a given day was very helpful. I like to start the class with just a math puzzle. And to take away a lot of the fear factor, I ask students to private chat me their responses. This is a way for me to gauge in the first 5 minutes, did you log in and are you going to give me something, or you just log in, did you walk away? Right. So that's one way for me to just keep tabs and track of engagement. And it also allowed me to give students immediate feedback on an entry task. So when I open up to the class, they feel more empowered. Right. So like, oh, I got this part. I'm like, yes, you're going to share this part for the entire class. So that private chat element was really helpful for empowering and giving students confidence to take risks. I have always tried to let students know that I am not the knowledge holder in the space. I'm a facilitator, and getting them to understand that they are the holders of a wealth of knowledge already, right? So don't talk to me about the procedural stuff. That's not what I want to know. I want to know, does this make sense to you, this concept, and can you now communicate this concept to someone else? So a lot of my form, when I get to the actual instructional piece, my instruction is, here's this situation, here's this problem. What do we think? And having students chat, and then having one student respond to another student. And I'm sitting back and I'm just asking probing questions. And it really takes, I think it takes a lot of the stigma away from being in a math class, right? Like that student, like, well, I've always done terrible with this. I don't know what's going on. I don't want to say the wrong thing and sound stupid. I mean, I hear that all the time. I get that in private chat all the time. I don't want to sound dumb. And it's always just building that confidence. So those are some of the strategies that I've used for engagement. In addition to that, the interactive whiteboard has been amazing. It has been such a cool tool. And, you know, with middle school, you got to make sure you lay out your guidelines, expectations. You know, I've had to take it away a few times this year, but when you say, here's a problem, show me what you got, let's work through this together. If you have an idea, you circle important information, you underline important information. Can you show me an equation, show me an expression? And they put their initial next to whatever they add to the board. And then all of a sudden, this is what you created, right? And it's ownership. And I feel like that definitely leads to increased engagement for our students. In addition to that, so I should have said this. I'm gonna hit the rewind button. As of November 2nd, I am on leave of absence. So I am currently staying home staying home anyway, but I'm taking care of my 4-year-old and my 1-year-old because my wife and I are both educators. After the first week in the classroom, we realized this is not going to work. We have our children playing Lord of the Flies from the hours of 8 to 3. This is not going to end well, right? And just that feeling of not doing anything well. You're not parenting well. You're not teaching well. And we got to a point where we said, let's budget, make this happen. So I am at home with the kids. So right now, the experience I'm speaking to is from August through October. Just full disclosure there. But reaching out to parents and helping parents troubleshoot. I would send home a weekly video at the beginning of the week. Here's what we're doing this week. Here's what your students are expected to complete. If you have any questions, reach out to me. Every other week, I would send updates on assignments and students' progress. If your student is missing more than 2 assignments, you're going to get an email. And I encourage you to reach out and just kind of troubleshoot and figure this out. But those were some of the engagement tools and strategies that I've used. And the toll was immense. You know what, Chris, when you tell me you're going to bed earlier than ever, I don't know how you're doing it, because I found myself laying down after midnight every night. Because I wanted to make sure that I thought through the lesson plan, and I'm making sure that I'm setting up my scaffolds. I mean, the scaffolding that you need to do for a digital or online platform is unreal. So I found that it really took a toll on me and my time and my energy.
I really appreciate that acknowledgement of that, not feeling like you're not doing anything, you know, like trying to take care of small children, and teachers across the country have been having to make those choices, working folks, but I think teachers in particular have had to make that choice around, you know, the students in their classroom and their own children in their home. And that was one of the questions we were going to ask. So I just really appreciate acknowledging and then making the sacrifice based on having small children. So, Stephanie, I don't know. I didn't want to.
Yeah, no problem. I agree with like everything everybody is saying. I would say things that I could add to that would be, I sent out like a survey to every kid beforehand, and I usually do that anyway every year and every semester, though I changed it this time to be really more about like them specifically and what they were interested in the classroom, but also what are you interested outside the classroom? What's making you angry right now? What are you excited about? What are you most interested in? I also do the superpower question and stuff and it's all done through a survey that just comes to me. They can share their pronouns, all of that, so that they're able to realize that I care, right? And open up that conversation first. And then it allows me to be able to bring that in different ways, you know, whether it's somebody, so for my musical theater class, which is a high school level class, it's all female identifying students this semester, and they were all very interested in the election and Black Lives Matter and representation. I'm the only white one, the fully white one in the room too. So understanding my perspective from that and their perspective, I then was able to create different curriculum that really was something they wanted. And what shows were we listening to and watching and reading, and how were we responding to them? What material were they picking for themselves or I was offering for them, so that it was really material that they were excited about and that was aligned with what they were interested in. I also teach 6th grade dance, which is fascinating, via Zoom. And I'm not going to lie, I love the mute function, because in the dance room, 6th graders dancing, 16 of them can get a lot. And so the mute function actually allows them to have to focus occasionally and my brain not go explode. And one of the things I saw in 6th grade dance, which is very different, is the way that I've set it up with breakout rooms and having to come in and assigning leaders to different things, is they have to participate in a different way than they might not do in person. And some of them actually feel more comfortable participating more in a remote sense than they do in person in the classroom. And I've noticed that with my college level students too. So I teach a stress management class, and one of the sections I teach is completely virtual on Blackboard. I don't see them, they don't see me. And it's a lot of just discussion boards and reflections and things like that. And they are also, many of them are first responders as well. Also going through this, their undergrad program. And I've heard from students that, I'm fortunate to teach stress management at a time like this where it's extremely applicable. Mm-hmm. And so I'm trying to make it really applicable for how is this supporting you? And students have said that actually the way it's structured, and being that it's not in person, they have felt much, they felt like they could be way more vulnerable because they were able to post in blog format or discussion board format, and they didn't have to actually verbally say it to somebody in person. So there are some benefits, and I think it is just being able to try new things. And I am one of the first to always say hey, I'm trying this. It didn't work. Let's try something different next time. Right. Or we use Schoology at the school I work at, and I didn't realize that my 6th graders were in a completely different Schoology section than I was. And so they were asking me why they weren't getting things. And I was it's right there. I'm sharing my screen and showing you. And then we finally had a conversation about it literally a week ago. And they were oh, we have this. And so, it's taught all of us how to communicate better. I have been really explicit with all of them that this is where, if you don't know something, please email. You can't email enough, right? Communicate, advocate for yourself, and empower yourself to use your voice. So I would say those are some engagement things. I also do a check-in. I do something called a mood check-in. So they have to say how they're feeling, and then I usually bring it into a dance thing. Can you create a shape about that? And I really highly encourage academic teachers to also bring the arts into. I always did, but this specifically, how can you move your body? So one of my projects is them creating dance based off of math angles, right? How can you create a right angle in the lower part of your body, now the upper part, right? So how are we getting them to move while learning the content? And that's so important right now, since we're always sitting and looking at a screen.
I'm going to punt this over to Megan and give you, I know your mind is going and you have lots of questions, so I'm just going to.
I had so many questions, and then the second Stephanie finished, the crow came back. So I'm going to apologize, and that's why the dog is on my lap. I'm trying to keep her still. I just wanted to reinforce a lot of what I heard. I was taking really careful notes, and I appreciated so much of what you're all naming, which is making those intentional efforts to connect with students and families in a different way. So I love that we're figuring out new and different ways to connect with our families. We haven't talked a lot about equity, which I really want to do. And I also have another question, and I'm noticing that we have 11 minutes. So I've got a lot going on, but I just wanted to reinforce back what I heard, which were, different creative ways to connect with kids through video, through the check-ins that we normally do. I love that Brandon named routines. I think that's really helpful. texting and engaging with parents in a different way. I'm super jealous that I don't have my son's teachers aren't sending a video. So I'm also, as a parent, struggling sometimes to figure out how to connect and help my kid. Not that I want my son's teachers to send me videos, but boy, that would be nice, because then I could actually figure out how to do it. Right. And they've been great, and they will engage with me and answer questions. But it's hard as a parent also then to know how to get in there and to provide the support to your kid, and you're watching them struggle, which has been really hard. I had two questions. The one that feels top of mind based on what we've been talking about is I'm hearing a lot of innovative strategies. When we go back to being in person again, how do you think this experience is going to change the way that you teach moving forward? Or are you going to use any of these things to inform how you teach moving forward? And just for fun, let's switch the order around and start with Stephanie and go the other way. So, yeah.
Yeah, I really love that question because, yes, I have found projects that work so much better because of having to think differently, including the 6th grade final project every quarter, having them look at a video from professional dancers and then create their own phrases and then have to edit them into a dance video, right? Like, I never really had them do that in person. And I was like, oh, this makes so much sense. And the other thing I'll say is, in the musical theater class, I was trying to think of ways that I could give them assignments that were meaningful, that weren't screen-based. And I was like, oh my gosh, there are podcasts, right? So I created this entire unit around a podcast that came out this summer called Why We Theater. And one of the all the episodes are great, but one of the episodes was so applicable to what those girls wanted to learn. And so I reached out to the woman that does the podcast and said, hey, would you like to also come in and Zoom in at some point and be a guest? Which has been actually really nice that we have now this ability to have people Zoom in and they don't have to fly anywhere. And so I don't really have to pay them as much or at all. And so many people are graciously giving their time because they want to help educators and students. So, I would never have thought of doing a podcast and integrating that into something if we were in person, because I would have been so focused on the doing of like singing, dancing, and acting, which we can't sing in person. And we can dance in very limited ways in person. And so it was like, how can we do all of this in a way that's still meaningful and exciting to them? So that was one thing, the 6th grade thing as well. And then just, I had to learn a lot of other things like Flipgrid and Pear Deck and things like that I'm like, yeah, why would I not continue to use these? They're way more fun than me just doing everything and lecturing when it is a type of lecture day.
Yeah, there are definitely elements of the distant learning that I am going to hold on to and try to refine and really implement with regularity moving forward. I see a lot more possibilities and opportunities around equity, right? So if students, for whatever reason, can't access your class, of course, we know students, how easily it is for them to get behind around behavioral issues, right? Which of course are linked to academic issues more times than not. And it's a way for them to kind of escape. So if I'm able to use more of the technology, recording lessons, small snippets, the ability to record myself during a lesson or a fun flowcap video and embedding a quiz into that and making this 5-minute snippet a formative assessment. And I can say before you even come to class, knock this out. And that's just going to help my planning, right? So now I know how many of you, where are you? Who do I need to hit today? Who can I extend and push? It's unreal. You know what? If you're sick and you're home for 2 days, tell you what, I'll shoot you the link. Here's what you missed for the day. Do the assignment digitally, submit it when you can, and we can set up a mini conference to check in later if you have questions. I mean, the conferencing element, the ability to have a cache of resources readily available that all I have to do is go back now and modify slightly, right? And rinse and repeat. and make that accessible to students is going to be huge. I just feel like this is going to allow me to differentiate so much more effectively moving forward. I've toyed with a flipped classroom in the past, but this year I actually implemented a flipped classroom. And what I found for the students who were actually engaging in that at-home piece remotely, they did come to class more prepared. They did come to class and were able, seeing it now a second time and having deeper conversations and coming into class with questions. It's huge. And of course, not all of my students are going to take that opportunity because, I mean, the learning is an opportunity. Let's call it what it is. They might not take that opportunity, but at least I'll know where they are on the way in, right? And I'll still know where to hit them, and I'll know where to start to make sure everyone is coming in and kind of at that entry level, right? I can meet you where you are. So the differentiation piece is great. The digital piece, I love the videos. And just the communication. Honestly, I think this video idea, it does take a lot, but I feel like even if I don't do it every week, if I make this video every other week and the first 30 seconds is a recap of the past week or the past week and a half, and the other 45 seconds is this is what's coming up, this is what we're doing, this is where we are. I mean, like, why not?
Yeah, Brandon, I think you tapped into something really, really important. It's something that I try and keep track of every day and keep in my mind every day. And that is that meet them where they are, I think is so, so crucial. I think it's, I think we all get in the trap of, thinking that things ought to be the way they should be as opposed to the way they are. And so to really recognize the students for where they are today, not where they were last year, not where we're going, but where are we right here, right now? I cannot, undervalue the importance of that. I think if, I keep having these fears that, I'm going to get, some kind of message that says, hey, guess what? We're starting back live on Monday. And I mean, it's not going to happen. Honestly, the way numbers are going, I wouldn't be surprised if we're out for the year. I think we're definitely out until January. But whenever that happens, let's say it goes through summer. When they come back, they're going to have been out of school, out of the classroom, potentially for over a year. And there's going to be a huge transition that has to occur again. They had to transition from in-person to online. And now, a lot of them may hate it and a lot of them may be checking out and not turning in work and whatever, but they're getting used to the routine. They're getting used to being online. And when they come back, I think we as educators need to have the utmost patience and really adapt, really let go of whatever preconceived ideas of what we thought things ought to look like and meet them where they are and proceed accordingly. I assigned them a book, Kingdom Keepers, which I thought was going to be a lot of fun. It's about Disney, kids sneaking in after dark, the rides coming alive and trying to eat them. The kids that are doing well are the kids that would be doing well anyway. The rest of them, checked out, and I gotta be okay with that. I could get upset and I could go, what the heck is wrong with you? Why aren't you liking it? It's Disney. Well, I guess Disney's not cool anymore. Now it's all about TikTok, right? But again, adapt, fine. If they want to talk about TikTok, let's adapt to TikTok. Let go. And I think letting go and adapting and meeting them on their playing field is so, so important. One of the things I'm definitely going to take with me is Google Classroom. I mean, I love not having, and I think back to my days of teaching college and stuff. I love not having papers everywhere because I'm horrible when it comes to organization. And so when I can have everything, boom, right in front of me, it doesn't mean that 3 months into it, they can still figure out where things are. At least that's what they tell me. And I'm supposed to believe it, but at least I know where it is. And so I can say, oh, you don't know where it is? It's right there. And so just being organized like that for me is absolutely invaluable. So that's one of the other things that I'll be taking with me.
Are we out of time or should I? Oh, okay. Yeah, absolutely. What I will take back with me is a greater flexibility, especially I love what Stephanie said about welcoming people into your classroom. I mean, it's great. Like, I will definitely Zoom in people even if we're all in person. I use the Nearpod platform, which I've really enjoyed getting to know better. And that allows students to complete work asynchronously, so greater flexibility around attendance. But also, I will never put up with the stuff I put up with before in terms of inequity for my students. I just won't. I cannot believe that my children did not have Chromebooks. And then within a month's time, we distributed 56,000 Chromebooks. Like, how do we allow that to happen? And when I say my children, I mean not just the children that I teach, but my own. And I find that just appalling, that all of the things, and myself included, that I went along with, that I knew weren't right, as I mentioned before, the grading policy, and that we can make these changes, and it should not take a worldwide pandemic for them to happen. Mm-hmm. And so I do feel liberated, and I feel like I'm not going to settle, and I'm not going to settle for what the kids really deserve and should have been getting all along.
There's so many more things that I would love to talk with you all about, because I think that this is so layered in the work that you're doing. And Emily, I'm so grateful that was the last comment from the teacher, because that is how I feel. And I know Megan feels this way. I think we have this opportunity to really do things differently, and we have to be steadfast, because the system is going to be pulling us back to the inequity that existed before and the inequity that we see every day. And I think we have this opportunity, and we need to, all of us, continue to demand that our kids get better, that our system is better, that we're more able to educate our kids in a way that they deserve. And that we're able to take in the whole inequality of all of it, because it's all layered and it's all connected. So I'm so grateful that was the last comment, because I know that that's central to how Meg and I think about everything. So
yeah,
I'm really.
I just had two related resources to that.
Mm-hmm. Yes, okay, and we'll post them on the page too. So
okay.
No, you can say them. We don't have our editor cutting us off. We go till we're done.
So one is this course is called the Not So Distant Learning course. It's available online through Teachable. It's amazing. It was put together by all Boston Public School teachers, educators, and it's free. And I don't know what teacher is going to have time to complete this course right now, but it really, really helped me to prepare for the school year. And I was fortunate that we had that extra time at the beginning of the year. And then also The Pandemic is a Portal, which is a poem by Aaron Doty Roy. And there's a video version that I put on the resources page that I found very inspiring and helpful.
Yeah, we'll link the video on our Facebook page, and we'll link the resources on the Facebook page and our website.
Yeah, no, I appreciate all of you. It's really inspiring to hear all of your thoughts and how much you're being flexible. I also really I'm grateful for the final thoughts from you, Emily, as well, around just even acknowledging that we allowed things to be different. And so I appreciate the vulnerability of that. And I've had the same. And I think I've admitted quite a bit how much, my specialty is in education change. And Susan keeps hearing me say this, but one of the things you learn when you're taught how to do education change is that change takes a really long time, and the system, educators can't move. And I believed it. But actually this year's really inspired me. We've been able to change instantly, and it's just re-inspired for me, and the pride I have in being an educator, and how adept we've all been, and how much we've just pivoted on a dime, how we're doing things. And it's proven to me that we can be different. We don't need to go so slow. And we absolutely can put equity at the center of our work in a way that we haven't done before. And we can shift the way we focus on our most vulnerable students, and make things more accessible. There's no reason why our system can't do that anymore. And it's really affirming to hear from each one of you I'm incredibly grateful for all of your time and your brilliance.
You.
And we could stay for a lot longer, but my dogs won't tolerate it anyway. It looks like you have someone in some shadows around you as well.
Yeah, Chris is lurking. He wants to say hi. He wants to say hi to his old educator friends.
Okay, I'll stop recording. So thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
Image of two girls that were sitting outside of a Taco Bell trying to do their homework, sitting on the curb, trying to get the free Wi-Fi. And, that's one of those things that we don't appreciate. In fact, my son definitely does not appreciate, which is he doesn't like that our Wi-Fi is slower than he'd like it to be. But the fact that he has Wi-Fi and he's able to do his learning and he has a safe and comfortable place to learn is a big deal during this time. And so, I appreciated Assemblymember Bonta naming that, and also naming access to food, which is always heartening for me when our leaders understand that food insecurity is such a big deal for so many of our families, and that schools have been playing a vital role in addressing that. It reminds me of our conversation with former State Superintendent Delane Easton, who helped to bring legislation in California to bring meals to our students in a more progressive way. And I've been watching, actually our other guest, Jennifer Labar, has just secured a grant this morning to deliver meals as well. So it's been exciting.
When we first went to Shelter in Place, our highest viewed episode was the interview with Jennifer Labar, because we reposted it to kind of highlight the challenges around food, and there was it became clear how important during distance learning food was to our families, and it continues to be, and it has been one of the ways that community where it has shown up, and folks have still been able to stay connected to the school even during Shelter in Place. But I think we need to do more. I think this is an opportunity to, as Assemblymember Bonta said, we're highlighting those equity issues, and we have an opportunity now that they're highlighted to make sure that the thread of those needs don't fade to the back as we get back in the building and people no longer see them in the same way.
Yeah, I really appreciated that he ended on that note, and it is something really helpful for me, and I know for you too, which is I think that the confluence of COVID-19 and Black Lives Matter and unfortunately, devastatingly, the deaths / murders of several African American people this year have raised awareness around equity and bias in a way that people understand it being an issue in a bigger way than I've seen or heard of in a long time, or ever maybe. And it's become this thing that's not like a nice add-on or something we don't want to think about, but it's understood as a crucial element that we must address. Not only just like financial inequities of families that don't have access to food or technology, but also the role of implicit bias and of the disproportional amount of African American students, especially boys, in special education and discipline issues, achievement gap. These are all things we've known for a long time, but I feel like people are trying to understand them and understand the root causes in a different way, which makes me really hopeful. It certainly was ubiquitous in in the school board race that I was just in. Like, it was in every conversation. There wasn't one person that was questioning that. It was an understood issue that we in the city need to address. And that's why I entered the race. So it was very hopeful for me that was such a big part of the conversation, and it's going to be, what I focus on. When I'm sworn in 2 weeks.
I know. I'm so glad that voice will be, and not only will the voice be there, you have a depth of understanding of how education works, having been in the classroom, having been in the central. I think being able to bring both that equity lens and that real life experience to a board has the opportunity to make changes on a policy level that are realistic and will implement practice in the classroom in a way that can feel change and powerful. Because I think sometimes that's what we miss. We have people that really understand the need, see the need, but don't understand the reality of what a teacher's experiencing day to day in the classroom, and to be able to have both of those things. I think that I'm hoping we get to a place as a culture that we start to understand the complexities. And I feel like we became so polarized and water things down so much, these simplistic responses. And in some ways, COVID forced us to make quick decisions, which was good. And I think Assemblyman Bonta brought that up, and I really appreciated the moving quick, but now we have the opportunity to sort of untangle. And I'm hoping as a culture we get to places where we can grapple with complexity.
Yeah, I agree. That's a great place to end, Susan. So let's end it there. We need to start grappling with complexity in a new way. It's exciting to hear a legislator talking about it in this way, and also, short-term versus long-term solution. Mm-hmm. Coming up in this series, we'll be talking to some teachers. We have a panel of teachers that will be joining us to talk about how they're working with distance learning, how they're making it work, how they're struggling with it. I imagine we'll hit all of those kinds of topics. And it'll be our first panel, so I'm kind of excited about that. I'm a little nervous, but I think it'll be good. And then we're going to hopefully have an administrator.
Yeah.
It'll be good.
I'm excited. I mean, it's so relevant, right? We're in it, but I hopefully will be able to also keep that thread of it isn't just the moment, it's the moving forward. So that's the thread.
I love that. I'm going to quote that. It's not just the moment, it's the moving forward, said by Susan Andrian. Thanks, everyone. We're always happy to greet you on the next episode of The Awakening Educator.
Watch or listen to all our shows anytime from anywhere on YouTube, Facebook, or your favorite streaming platform. Please like our shows and spread the word to others.
Have any questions you'd like to ask, or maybe you have knowledge you'd like to share? Email us at megansweet@your3eyes.com, or visit our website at your3eyes.com. YOUR3EYES.com. Thank you.
Class is dismissed. Wasn't that fun? Susan and Megan are always happy to greet you on the next episode of The Awakening Educator. Connect with us on Facebook, Instagram, YouTube. Education is the foundation for a brighter future. Open your eyes to The Awakening Educator.